Hello everybody. Today I'm going to be going through the TPA written components. So first things first, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. That way you don't just see absolutely all of my writing. Um, the first page, the cover page, all it really had was your name and your student ID um, and the unit code, fairly basic. I included a photo, which I've since deleted part of it. Obviously, you do not need to do that. The next part that you need to do will be a personal teaching statement. I will make this clear. Every university might be slightly different. This is just what my university did. So if you have any questions about how yours might differ to mine, I might not be able to answer that. But I'm just showing you what is generally looked at. I guess this was for the QTPA. So it might be slightly different to what different universities have to do. So component A, personal teaching statement, fairly straightforward. You just talk about an introduction of why you wanted to do teaching, and then you go through professional knowledge, professional practice, and professional engagement whilst trying to touch upon the different. Let me just close something quickly. While you're trying to touch upon the different standards here. So for professional knowledge, make sure you make some sort of mention of knowing students and how they learn and knowing the content and how to teach it. Use examples from your practicals where that might explain as to like a degree of application. So certain students that you had on your prac, you knew them and you knew how they learned. Give an example of that, and also use references, scholarly references, to help back that up. Because anytime you link something to theory, that's going to go down really well. Similarly, you have to go through the others as well. For professional practice, where it's got 3 different standards there, obviously make that one a little bit longer. Professional engagement can be a little bit trickier to try to fill something into the gaps. But where there's a will, there is a way. If there are questions about it, I can let you know what I end up coming up with. When it comes to component B, planning for teaching and learning, first you give a little bit of an overview of the school and about what the class is like. At least at my university, there was a template that we needed to fill in. Then when it comes to a diagnostic test, depending on what your subject is, you can have all sorts of different diagnostic tests. I'll let you zoom in so you can have a look at mine. Mine was for mathematics, and it was a mathematics test, but it had questions on lots of different sorts of things. But the main thing that I was targeting was to do with fractions. So I've highlighted the fractions questions in orange, and I've just done in Excel a little picture of with conditional formatting where I've done green if they've got the question right, yellow part right, red wrong. And we're just focusing really on the columns where it's got orange at the top. And then you write a little bit of information about it. Now, the main aim during TPA is that you're supposed to show the impact of learning and evidence of learning. So, well, impact of teaching and evidence of learning. So you're supposed to pick 2 students, and then you're supposed to do a pre-test and a post-test to see how they do, to see how they have improved. Now, it is a little bit strange in that it doesn't have to be formally announced who the students are. So you could always have 2 students in your head, you choose them, and then if they haven't improved how you thought, you can choose others. I know at certain universities the aim is to pick one higher level student and one low. At my university, it was mentioned to pick 2 middle of the road students academically. So yeah, I guess you've just got to work within whatever limitations that your university sets, the stipulations that they have. Now, what I had actually done, I had done everything in Microsoft Word, like as in got all my tables and things, and all my pictures. But then I saved the file as a PDF, and then I've used Drawboard PDF to end up putting in all the annotations. The annotations is something that takes a very long time, especially if you don't have a good program. So I strongly recommend Drawboard PDF, and I'll do another video about that in time. So this is a little bit of the information that I have about the diagnostic test, and clear colored arrows to show what I'm talking about when and where. So I'm just going to zoom out again. Now the next part was determining student achievement and learning. So just making some sort of a mention as to where they're at and what you need to target. Now, you do some lesson plans, but they're only supposed to be fairly vague. Well, not vague, but nowhere near as detailed as what you normally would do. Then you need to do 4 to 6 different lesson plans at my university. They wanted 1 page each, so again, not incredibly detailed. And then you have them annotated. And the next thing that was asked for in this component, one of the things I quite liked, was an annotated resource, which for mine was the resource of fraction tiles. So because I was teaching fractions, and I bought these from Officeworks, fraction tiles was really good for me to use. Now I used a document camera where I could look at the fraction tiles and show it to the whole class because the document camera would be connected to my laptop, which was then connected wirelessly to the smartboard screen that the whole class could see. So when I was playing with the fraction tiles right at my desk, the whole class could see what was going on without having to crowd around. They could just see it from the comfort of their seats. So that's something I've mentioned down here. I make other little mentions about how it's color coded and you can actually see it. It's almost like a little bit of a number line. Address things to curriculum links where possible, because again, we're really trying to show that we're not just applying the curriculum, but in general, you're trying to show from all your written work evidence of learning throughout your degree. So you know that you've got to stick to the curriculum. You know that there's a lot of theory that would have helped us at certain times. These are the things that help turn your written work from good to excellent. And yeah, can give you the opportunity to get an exceeded pass, not just an ordinary pass. Fundamentally, though, you've just got to deliver what they ask for. That's the key. Now, again, I'm going to keep it zoomed out a bit so we don't see exactly what I've written for confidentiality reasons. But you have to show for component C, quite simply, how the students were at the start of the learning sequence and how they were at the end of it. So I've got student A pre-learning sequence, what they got right, what they didn't, and why. And then same goes for post. And again, nicely annotated with colored borders and colored arrows, having it nice and clear, although the pictures aren't really that nice, but we did what we could. Anyways, then at the end of that, the final step is analyzing post-test results, pre-test, post-test, and then a bit of an information about the demonstration of impact. So I'll just show a little bit of information about the pre and post test. Now I've got quite an extensive background in Excel with conditional formatting and things like this, so I know full well the how to end up doing things like this. So yeah, you don't have to make it quite as fancy as mine, but yeah, this is something that you could end up doing. It would be good to have at least a workable knowledge of Excel and being able to show your results in a way that at least is clear for anybody to have a look at. It also needs to be mentioned that I've mainly made this video because I wanted to sort of ease the stress when it comes to TPA for some people, because I want to stress when it comes to your final prac, nobody knows it as well as you do, the student that was on it. Your mentor teacher will have a reasonably good idea. Obviously, the kids in the class would have some idea, an EA or TA or university prac supervisor gets snippets when they visit, but realistically, you know it better than anybody else. So don't have fear when it comes to talking about what you know happened when and why, and yeah, just explaining it as best as you can. Okay, the last little thing that I want to end up doing is responding to some questions. So I was asked some questions about it. So I'm just going to read it out loud and then explain my answer. So I had somebody ask me, I'm to organise 5 to 8 lessons. Do you know if that's separate from the normal placement workload or part of it? It should definitely be part of it. I know at my university, it was said in this written component you needed 4 to 6 lesson plans. So they're just lesson plans that you would have used during your lessons. So I only did 4, and that was sort of what was suggested to me by the university. There's no real point in doing more than that. They just want to see, your lesson sequence. What was your plan of attack when it came to trying to find out the weaknesses in the students from the diagnostic test, and then go about addressing those bit by bit. So this was for maths, but it would be the same thing for writing. If they had issues with articles, issues with using past tense correctly with irregular verbs or something like this could be targeted, it would be stated, and then you need to show what you're planning to do to rectify these issues, and then at the end, hopefully, they were actually rectified. Okay, next question that I had was, did you plan / organize your lessons during or before placements, like during the pre-visits? Uh, you locked in everything the mentor wanted to cover. So realistically, when it comes to your planning days, your mentor teacher should be letting you know what is the plan for what is to be taught. Therefore, you should have a pretty good handle of your lesson planning and what sequencing you're going to use. Now, keeping in mind, because this has only got to be, for at least my universities, as a minimum 4 lesson sequence. For this person who messaged me, it was 5 lesson sequence at minimum. Obviously, it doesn't have to be extremely long. If you're doing it for writing, for example, you could do, writing 5 days of the week. So it's literally a 1 week sequence from Monday to Wednesday. You got them to do, let's say, a persuasive writing task initially. You got them to have a go at it. So cold task, and then, well, actually, yeah, you get them to do the task initially, see how they went, and then, yeah, you end up doing this lesson sequence, getting them to repeat the same task and seeing how the performance changes. So, yeah, it really should be something that you're organizing during your planning days. And you need to have good communication with your mentor teacher to therefore be able to establish exactly what you need to be doing. Okay? So make sure that your mentor teacher is letting you know. The more your mentor teacher tells you about what needs to be done, the better prepared you're going to be and the easier it makes it for everybody. And I believe that's all the questions I've got, but feel free to ask if you've got any more. Yeah, like I stress, it's not as bad as it seems. Drawboard PDF is amazing. So strong recommendation. So please use that or something very, very similar. These annotations would have taken an absolute eternity on something that was a lot less user friendly than Drawboard PDF. So I really strongly recommend that. And yeah, the main thing you've got to think of during your prac, think of your 2 students, and even before your prac starts, you should be thinking, what do I want to do my pre and post tasks on? Do I want to do it on a maths test of a certain subject matter for maths, something to do with writing? They would be my main recommendations. To do something for like HAS or something like that, it's probably, I think, a lot less applicable because you're doing that subject far less often than what you're doing a maths or an English. And even something like spelling, I feel it's a little bit too brief. You can't really flesh it out. You can't really have the hard hitting impact sort of thing with something like that. So strong recommendation to do either maths or writing. I guess it just depends on which one you would prefer. I preferred maths. I have a strong preference for maths, but I actually think writing wouldn't have been too bad either. It just can be a little bit harder to quantify actual improvement unless you've got, like a good rubric where you can actually really show what things that they were doing at what standard previously and what they were doing afterwards. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, let me know. Oh yeah, last little thing I will mention. I believe this probably took me somewhere towards 20 hours to put it all together. So yeah, the quicker you get a little bit of a handle on your lesson planning and putting all things together, the better. And yeah, definitely, if you do want to try to get an exceeded pass, definitely try to use as many references, scholarly references as you can. Anyways, that's all we got enough. That's all we got time for today. If you've got any questions, please let me know. Thank you so much for your time.